I'm Becky Fawcett, a mom by adoption, an infertile blonde, a female founder, and an entrepreneur. Podcast rulebooks say your introduction must always be the same for every episode, but I don't really like that. And mine isn't going to be the same because I'm so over being perfect. I tried to be perfect my whole life and do what everyone else was doing. And then I tried to have children. That's my plot twist. And now I look for any opportunity to be different. I'm an outspoken advocate who wants to change the world, and this sometimes gets me into trouble, but for the most part, it helps me make real connections with real people. Welcome to my podcast, The Fawcett Report. I'm so glad you're here. Today, joining us is my friend Paige Grimaldi, and Paige is many things. She works in fashion and luxury retail, and she works at Skirt in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, that is owned by my friend Maureen Doron, and that is how we met. And it's one of the greatest introductions ever that Maureen could have made to me. She has a rescue dog named Archie, and of course, that is one of the other things I love about Paige. And she runs. There's a tie-in there with Help Us Adopt. And all roads lead to Help Us Adopt, and you know that. I'm not going to tell you what the road is here. You're going to have to stick around, but trust me, you're going to want to hear this. She's also on our board of directors at helpusadopt.org. It's pretty incredible. So, Paige, welcome to the Fawcett Report. I'm thrilled you're here today.
This has been a long time coming, I feel like, with all of our conversations, and I'm so excited it's finally happening.
I know. It's going to be good. First, though, I definitely want to talk about your career in fashion and lifestyle. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your personal style and how that plays into what you do? Because, you know, sometimes people think she works in a store, she sells clothing, but that's not really exactly it, is it?
So with any of our stylists at Skirt, we all have our own style. I think for myself, whether I'm at the store or I'm running around, or Becky knows I'm so close with my nephew. So I'm always at like a basketball game or on the field of some sort. And I think my style really is just classic, core classic pieces that I know that I can just throw on with a pair of jeans and wear to work, but then also to maybe go off to dinner or even to the basketball court. I absolutely love, Becky will always see me in one, is a good blazer. I think investing in a great blazer will take you anywhere and everywhere. I throw it on over top of a sweatshirt. The girls at work laugh and say that it's my uniform. I think finding your style that can be almost your uniform, that's the best thing. Nicoletta, who I work with, she is always in black head to toe. Becky, I know you have your uniform.
I know. Well, and I wrote down, I wanted to talk about this, and I wrote down the word uniform. It's so funny because, you know, people will stop me and be like, oh my gosh, you take so much time to get dressed and you look, which is a nice compliment. That's very nice. But it's really not that hard because over the years, I know what I like, and it's like mix and match. It's like Garanimals for grown-ups in my closet. Like I mix and match, but I have a certain look, and that makes it easy when you have a uniform.
And I even say to my clients, I'm like, if you venture out too much, it's just going to sit in your closet and you're never going to wear it. So you got to find, again, your staples that you can just wear on repeat and rotate.
Yeah. So what happens when someone walks in? Because I know a lot of people, and I used to when I had more time, I would go shopping with friends in New York who were like, oh my God, I will never forget. My one friend was like, I have to go to a Beyonce concert for the Super Bowl. And this was years ago. And she's like, I need your help. And I got her in a pair of leather pants. And this was a friend who was very, very corporate. And it was hilarious because I'm like, okay, these look so good and you're going to love them. It was very funny. So how do you help women who come in who say, I want to have a uniform. I just want to pull myself together is like the phrase I hear, but I'm overwhelmed by choices. I don't know how to do that. What do you tell people?
I start to really get to know them, get to know their lifestyle. If they are wanting to work within a certain budget, especially if they do have some pieces at home that they gravitate towards and kind of starting to build upon that. And so then it's more of a gradual process and not having to get everything all at once. I think that's kind of the most overwhelming when you're like, okay, I want to get a staple wardrobe, but I don't want to do it all at one time. So we can continuously build on. So I think the first thing is, like I said, getting a great blazer, getting a pair of jeans that you feel most comfortable in. I feel like jeans are almost like buying a bathing suit. It's one of the things that you kind of dread the most of, but once you find one that you feel great in, then you're like, okay, I'm done.
Well, I
And
have to tell you what I'm wearing today. You can't see me in New York, but I am wearing a pair of black L'Agence jeans. They're fitted and then a little bit of a bell bottom. And I cut the band off at the bottom of the bell bottom. So it's distressed now. I got them at Skirt, I don't even know how long ago. And they are still a staple in my closet. And don't worry, I mean, I bought tons of pants since then, but it is funny that there are certain styles and cuts that I always go back to these black jeans that I got at Skirt, and they just fit well and they look like trousers. So I wear them to work because it doesn't look like a jean.
yeah, so kind of finding that balance of what you already have in your closet and that you gravitate towards and just updating it with newer pieces. But I have to say, I think whenever our clients do come out of the fitting room and feel good, that's probably the most heartwarming feeling. And you just feel so happy for them too.
Well, you
Because
see it. You see it in their face. You
yes,
see it in people's face when they're wearing something that they feel comfortable in. That
they feel
with,
great. And
yeah,
I would rather have them come out and feel great. If they feel confident to come out and show me, but also if we're not loving the piece, to have that almost a sister honesty or that friend honesty
yeah,
that they're not going to go home and be like, oh my gosh, why would Paige tell me to buy this?
yeah.
And then their daughter being like, mom. So
Well,
I
I
think
always
that trust is the biggest thing in the fitting room too.
That's it. And I always say, I mean, I know when I try something on and I don't like the way it looks on me, I know instantly it's just me. But when I'm shopping somewhere and the salesperson's like, oh, I love that. And I'm like, we're done here because I know it does not look good on me. And they're just trying to make the sale. But I know when working with you, you're like, nope, that's not it. Take it off.
I'm like, that's not you.
Because that's it. Sometimes you love it on other people.
Yeah.
And it's just not like I don't wear a lot of prints and I don't wear a lot of color, but I love that on other people. But when I put on like a dress with a print, I'm like, oh my God, this is not me at all.
I would be like, that's not you.
Yeah. Tell me about like some of your favorite designers and like what is your favorite blazer?
I would say Blase Milano. It is a company based out of Milan. They're known for their pockets.
I love
And they're just
I
the
don't own
classic.
one. I don't own one. You know, I always look at it when
I
I'm with you.
It is Maureen started carrying them, I would say just under 5 we've been carrying them. It is one of those blazers that if you have one, you'll have it for the rest of your life. I always compare it to like a Max Mara coat. It is something that I will probably pass down later on in life if I have a daughter. My sisters steal it from my closet whenever they get, but it's definitely an investment piece, but you can wear it as an outerwear, you can wear it over top of a dress. It's just going back to that uniform. And I think just having that one great blazer and a good white tee and a pair of jeans that will, again, my uniform.
Okay, so now I need to ask you the very big important question, the white
Yes.
t-shirt.
Yes.
White t-shirts drive me crazy because they're t-shirts have gotten very expensive in this world. So
Yes.
sometimes I do buy a t-shirt at Target if I can find fabric that I like. But The thing with white t-shirts especially is that I feel like they are good for one summer and one summer only, and then they just don't look good no matter how much bleach you put in the washing machine. Do you have a secret to keeping white t-shirts white? I think
I
this might sound like a funny conversation, but if you're out
no,
there listening, you're going, "Uh-huh, uh-huh, I throw my white t-shirts away at the end of the summer."
I have to say, I think it all comes down to the washing process. I save all of my white tees throughout the week, and then I wash them all together for delicate, and then I hang dry all of them. I have to say, this is an ongoing conversation with all of us at the store. Where can we find the best white tee? Dana has found, who is our jewelry buyer, she has found an amazing white tee from Madewell. Gap, amazing white tees. But if you definitely want to splurge, there is a new boxy white Rag and Bone tee. It's a little bit thicker, which I really like. And it's for us little shorter girls. It's a little bit cropped. So it hits at your jeans right, I would say below the button. But I know it's that ongoing battle of, do I toss it right after the
Yeah,
summer? Because it's like the makeup, the tan,
it's a
or
hard one.
needs to be like a dummy's guide to
And
how
again,
to wash a white tee.
a really frivolous problem to have. I do understand how frivolous it is, but it is a funny conversation that I always hear people talking about. So I'm going to take you from fashion now to being an athlete. And the way we met, I guess it was 3 years ago. HelpUsAdopt.org always has a marathon team for the New York City Marathon. And Maureen, my friend who owns Skirt, must have seen us talking about the team 2 years ago on social media. And all of a sudden, Paige Grimaldi, who works at Skirt, has signed up for one of our bibs. Was like, wait a minute, this is very exciting. And Maureen made the formal introduction. And it was just, I remember getting on the phone with you for the first time to talk about it. And I think I was distracted by, now we're going to tell everybody the twist, the plot twist here. I am so inspired by marathon runners because that's not easy. That is no easy feat to run 26.2 miles. I mean, that's a big deal. It takes a lot of grit, it takes a lot of endurance, and most of it all is the mental grit it takes to get through that. And I'm so inspired by you for your running. And I love that you run for Help Us Adopt. And then you joined our board. But let's talk about the why for you.
I'll give you some backstory to the listeners. So I always knew about Help Us Adopt just through Maureen and Becky, but it wasn't until I saw the post and I was like, okay, like I've always been a long distance runner. I've run halves, and I was like, you know what? I think this, after seeing the post about the New York City Marathon and Team Help Us Adopt, I said, I think this is multiple signs. One, that I should finally run the New York City Marathon, but also a chance to share my story. It wasn't until I remember sitting on my couch writing the email about my story regarding my bid. It was probably the first time in 10 years that I actually put it out there, and I felt a sign of relief. And with my story, I remember saying, hi, my name is Paige Grimaldi. I have always been an avid runner, and I am a birth mother. The adoption happened 12 years ago, and I have seen the beauty of adoption from the other side. And this, fast forward to the conversation with Becky, and it was a sign of joy and almost a weight off my shoulders, but also, too, as Becky and I have talked about, it was probably the best therapy I never knew I needed. It was starting a new chapter in my healing process that all the signs above knew that I needed. So after my conversation with Becky, I think our conversation was probably 2 hours at Loch Lomond. We sat down and I was able to open up about everything that happened, the post adoption, how wonderful the family is, but also the guilt and the stigmas that I went through over the past 10 years. And I think having that support of Becky over, oh my gosh, now 3 years has grown so much. My mom and I always say it. Meeting Becky was probably the biggest and best therapy I've had, and being involved with Help Us Adopt, because everything happens for a reason. There's so many life unexpectancies that happen to people. And I think God gives you what you can handle. And I think this happened for a reason. I think meeting Becky happened for a reason. Running the New York City Marathon happened for a reason. And throughout the 3 years of the running and meeting with Becky and all of our conversations, I have learned that you can get through to the other side and use it for the better.
Yeah. I mean, I remember hearing your story and I was so inspired because I got it. I understood when you started to tell me from the beginning, like when you realized you were pregnant and when you went home and you didn't want your mom to know. And you're telling me this, and I'm watching you because I was sitting 2 feet from you. I could feel the tension in you telling me that story. And I know the shame and I know the stigmas and I know what people say because I've been involved in this adoption world for 20 plus years now. And I don't agree with any of it, but I know what people say.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to you, this story is going to change someone else's life by you sharing it. And you can use it for good and you can use it to change the world. It's your story. You should own it. You should be proud of this story and really embrace it.
And sharing my story every time I've become more comfortable sharing it. You and I have had these conversations, especially after we did the event at Skirt last December and we did the panel.
Mhm.
And I talked about my story a little bit further. And I had these behind the curtain conversations in the fitting rooms with my clients. And it was really a time where I felt more of a community within Skirt and more of a support, because obviously with the main line, but it can happen to anyone. That's the thing. And I think
That's what I tell people.
you could be from well off family or someone on the streets. It could happen to anyone, but I think the biggest thing of is having that support and being there for her post adoption. And I think
Yeah.
even though it took us 10 years to meet, I am so fortunate that Help Us Adopt does have that community of just being there and fighting the stigma and really creating a new culture within the adoption community.
Yeah. One of the things that I specifically remember about birth mother stigma is when I adopted my second daughter, Brooke, in 2009. And I was home back in New York City. And I think I was at a play date for Jane at a family's house, but I had Brooke in the little baby bucket next to me. And the friend I was with said, "Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. Now tell me everything about the birth mother. Like, was she young? Was she poor? Was she an addict?" And I was like, I think I just stared at my friend and I was like, um, I think the words you're looking for is congratulations on becoming a mom the second time. And she put her hand, when people realize she put her hand over her mouth and she goes, "I'm so sorry." I go, "Those aren't appropriate statements. That's not the right thing to say." And that is, regardless of the adjectives that describe a birth mother, that is not the first thing you lead with. You lead with, to your friend, "I'm so happy for you and this new baby." And my friend really people know me. Sometimes I don't have a filter. I told you that in the beginning. Sometimes it gets me into trouble, but I was pissed because I am fiercely protective of my children's birth parents and their stories. And the world doesn't get those details because even if they are details of struggle, they're private until that woman wants to share them. And there needs to be a level of respect from the world out there to respect her journey, to respect her decision to carry this child to term and place this child for adoption. And I've done a lot of advocacy work over the years to change how people view birth parents and birth mothers, especially. These are women who gave my children life. Like, I wouldn't be a mom without these women. And I think when you and I met, it was really just a perfect storm of meeting at the right place at the right time and sharing these stories. And then when you joined our board of directors, I still tell people I predicted a lot of great moments with helpusadopt.org, but one of the most significant moments in the 18 years we've been around was when a birth mother wanted to join our board of directors. And I didn't see it coming. I didn't see it coming. And I was just like, this is important. This is an important moment.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think having my perspective as a birth mother, but also seeing everything that Help Us Adopt does from the other end, especially the grants and meeting the grant recipients and seeing the adopted mother and the baby, it's really a full circle moment that whenever it was at a gala or another event, seeing that full circle moment, but being on the other side of it, there are no words. I always come home from those events after meeting the adoptive parents and their new adoptive baby, and there really isn't any words.
You did that for someone. Like, we've talked about that moment. Like, you had to go through hell and back again, but you did that. You built a family. And like, that's just an incredible thing.
And talking to the adopted parents after many years, I know that I made the right decision from the beginning, but it reassures you that you're like, okay.
Yeah. And you and I have talked about stigma on many sides.
Yes.
We've talked about the birth mother stigma of like, oh God, how could you get pregnant by accident? It could happen to anyone. And then, oh, how could you place your baby? That's a stigma. The infertility that stigmas that I face, like, oh my God, how can your body not work properly? And then, the stigma of being adopted. My
Mhm.
girls talk about it all the time. And this has to stop. I mean, when you said we're creating a culture of a community here at helpusadopt.org, I love that term because the stigma is all around adoption. I don't care which part of the triad you play. The stigmas have to stop. Other people's opinion on the decisions people make in their family building journey, other people's opinions have to stop. It's really time to move on. And as my girls say, I think I called you, Paige. I was on a bus in New York City, and I think I called you because it was Jane last year that said the hardest thing about being adopted is the way the world reacts to the stigma. She said, Mom, being adopted, I'm just a daughter, a sister, a friend. I'm just me. But when the world hears the word adopted, people take a step back and they
They're like,
gasp. Yeah.
but
And she's like, that's the worst part. It's like I'm second. It's like I'm second best.
there should be no judgment on how to create a family.
And I
It's
remember in my first adoption journey, I don't know if I've ever shared this story here, but my first adoption journey, the journey to Jane, before I was matched with Jane's birth mother, we had a call with a woman who picked us. And when people always say this is the stereotype of a birth mother, I'm like, you guys are so off base. There is no stereotype of a birth
no.
mother. And let me tell you why. I remember getting on a phone call with a woman who loved our profile. She was 42 years old. She was a grandmother. and she could not believe she was pregnant. And she wanted to place the baby because that was her decision. She was a professional 42-year-old woman. And I remember having this conversation with her. And the reason, because you're probably going, wait, why didn't this work out? Is because she wanted to place the baby because the man she was dating, she knew didn't want more children. And she said, I want to place this baby, build another family, but I want to stay with this man. And this is not what he wants. And part of it was that she had to tell him she was pregnant. And the best part of the story is that the adoption match did not work out for me, which is my journey to Jane. Everything happens for a reason, as you said. But the best part of this woman's story is that this guy got down on one knee and proposed and said, yes, let's do this. And when she called me to say, I'm so sorry, I'm not going to be placing this baby, I think I was jumping up and down for this stranger on the other end of the phone going, her dream came true. He wants to be with her forever. And that's what I tell people. You can't classify birth mothers. It is just not possible to have a stereotype here.
And there's so many different scenarios and background stories for each birth mother that I was very fortunate. But I think for others, people can't place judgment on that either.
Yeah.
And very similar to what you said, being like, oh, well, like she didn't want her or didn't want him. And I think having the stigma with that is a whole nother conversation.
Can we talk about where you were in your life when you got pregnant and how you felt personally when you figured it out that you were pregnant? And then how the rest of that story unfolded. Like, do you mind talking about, I think, that moment that is sort of, I would imagine, takes your breath away. And then the support that you found or didn't find with your friends and family.
I was like a junior in college. They always say mothers have a sixth sense. My mom had a sixth sense. She had asked me prior, and I was like, no, no. And it all came to light. And I think in that moment, being so young and in the thick of my college academics, too, it was a shock. Now I'm 35, but I think at that age, you look back and see that you're still a child. You're just over the age of 18. You haven't experienced life yet. And you almost go into not a place of denial, but you go into a place of like, how could this happen? Like, how could this happen to me? You think of all these different scenarios. Obviously, we all know how it happens. At that point, after everything came to light, it wasn't survival mode, but it was protection of me, protection of what the community of the world would see. My parents did a great job of protecting me with that because, especially with the route that we were going, but it was also one of the most confusing times for myself as well because I didn't know exactly what was happening. Everything was changing. Fortunately, one of our really close family friends was a nurse at the hospital that I was delivering. So I had her as one of my biggest supports. She's one of my mom's best friends, and I am still to this day so grateful for her because she really, even afterwards, she really stood by me with a lot. But I think having the support of my family, and I think I might have said this to you, I was almost in like a cocoon until my delivery. The stigma of what was happening back in 2013 was 110 times worse than what it is today. And long and behold, after sharing my story and everything, one of my close family friends who I grew up going to elementary school with. She messaged me on Facebook and said, "What's your connection with adoption?" And I said, "I'm a birth mother." And she said, "I am too."
Oh,
And that we were best friends throughout elementary school and middle school. And then kind of just life happened with high school. And
well, there was no Facebook probably
there was
back
no,
then. I mean, that's it. How did
and
any of us keep in
yeah,
touch?
and it was one of those things that though we haven't spoken to each other in years, we knew what both of us
Yeah.
went through. And it's been such a wonderful connection. But wishing I had you, Becky, in my life since 2013, I think having that would have made the process a little bit better. But things that evolve over time, it's the resources that
Yeah.
are now available. Resources weren't at hand in 2013. It sounds like forever ago, but even at the hospitals and having that community of it. And no one really talked about having even their own children adopted. And even IVF, no one talked about it. But now, as things get more light, people are now seeing that, okay, I'm going through it. Who else is going through it? We can talk about everything. And it's not such a, oh, well, you're going through IVF or you're going through adoption. Like,
Like anything else, everybody needs to know you're not alone. This is not just
yeah,
happening to you. And I think one of the scariest things is when you're in one of these moments that, and it could have nothing to do with adoption, but when you are in a moment in your life that seems out of control and bigger than you can handle, you do feel like it's only happening to you and you don't know exactly how to take that
mhm,
next step. But there is, especially in this category of family building, there are people out there that you can talk to that have been in your shoes and can tell you there is light on the other side. You just got to get through it. Now we have time for one more question, and that's what I want to land on is if there's someone listening, I hope there's some birth mothers listening that will reach out to you and share their story with you. But if there's someone listening, or you could get your message out to a woman who is in that moment, she peed on the stick, is not the answer she wanted, and now she doesn't know what she's going to do. What's the piece of advice you would give her in that moment of sort of, oh my God,
everything's going to be okay. If you have a friend, tell that friend. You and me seem like the world is crumbling right in front of your eyes, and you don't know how you're going to survive it, but everything will be okay. It may take a little bit, but everything will be okay. I always say that looking back to 2013, it didn't seem like everything was going to be okay. I felt like I was going to be in this almost like rut. It comes out better than you think. You'll come out better than you think, and it'll be brighter. But find that one friend or one person that you can find in and ask for help. Reach out to the adoption community, reach out to someone because just having that off your shoulders will make you feel better. Once it's off your shoulders, then you can start the process of figuring everything out.
Paige, I'm so grateful that we finally found a time to sit down and do this.
Mm.
And your story is changing the world. I know that. And I think you know that too now, which is just incredible. Keep telling it, keep sharing. We will too, always help us adopt. Will always be an advocate for birth mothers and open adoption. And birth mothers are incredible humans. So tell people if they've listened to this and now they want to connect with you, tell people where they can find you on social media.
So they can find me at Paige Grimaldi. My Instagram handle is very simple. Or you can message me on Facebook. I am here, whatever you need, even if it's just conversation about your story, or if you're a birth mother and you kind of have to talk to someone. I am here. Becky and I will both say there's never any judgment. We are just ears and we are here.
I would imagine that there's not much another birth mother could say to you that you didn't say to yourself.
Yes, I'm here anytime.
Amazing. "30 Seconds with Becky Fawcett." So today's podcast was with my friend Paige, who's a birth mother. And from my seat at the table, which was an infertility patient who was coming to the end of her road when it was not working and who was thinking about adoption way back when. So that was the end of 2004. And I dove into adoption in early 2005, the journey to Jane. But I will tell you all, the thing I was most scared about was the birth mother relationship in an open adoption. I was terrified. Why? Because of the stigma Paige and I talked about, because of the world's judgment on birth mothers, because of the stereotype that's perpetuated in the magazine articles and in the Lifetime movies of the week. But I needed to become a mom, and I knew this was part of the journey. So what I want to tell you all, older and wiser, is that when I met my children's birth mothers in that first meeting, the first phone call, they were probably more scared than I was. And that was an eye-opener. And then I started to realize that they're just humans on the other end of that phone. And when I met them all in person, we were just like old friends sitting down. And some people might listen to that and say, there's no way. But that was the comfort level. And as that relationship grew, I realized that open adoption might not be so bad. My children, both to this day, Brooke is 16, Jane is 20, have open adoptions with their birth parents. And I know that the relationship to their birth parents is very important. I know that the relationship to my girls is very important. But the person who got caught off guard with how important this relationship is me. I'm the one who got blessed by this open adoption. And, I used to say I'd be worried this person's going to knock up my door and show up to sit at my Thanksgiving table. And now I want to invite them in. So this is to say goodbye to stigmas and judgment if you're headed down the adoption path, or if you're just a spectator, leave your judgment at the door. We all have our story. 30 Seconds with Becky Fawcett. Everybody, I want to thank you for listening today. I hope that was worth the time you took out of your schedule. Paige's story is so inspiring and so incredible, and I'm so glad you are all here today. Here's to seeing the world a little differently and possibly using your voice to make a difference. You can follow the Fawcett Report on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and you can message me on Instagram and Facebook. And guess what? I actually respond, as long as you're not mean. I don't do mean. You can disagree with me, but I don't do mean. And finally, if you're curious about any of my adoption and advocacy family building work through helpusadopt.org, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook, as well as through the website.